Hello and welcome to this second practical session where I would like to now demonstrate the concepts of the stock transactions that we were discussing in the previous module. Earlier, we set up our three stores, the main store, substore A and substore B, and then we saw that there were zero balances at all the stores for each item. So I'm going to go into this sales menu where we can post transactions. So I've called it a sales menu, but we can basically post any type of transaction from here because it is fully parameter driven. So I'm going to enter a new transaction. So for the sake of our reporting, I'm going to start my transactions from January, coming to February, March, and so forth, so that we can create the different type of reports that we want. So since we don't have any stock, we want to start by receiving stock from suppliers. So I changed the transaction type to receipts. So you can see that the same form can be used for different types of transactions. So I changed to receipts. And then you have got a number of parameters here that say issued by or sold by. So you can indicate the person that is doing the transaction. So in this case, it automatically indicates the person that is logged in to the system. If you'd like to keep track of your supplier details, this portion that you are using for customer details during the sales transaction, you can also use it for supplier details as well. But for now, I'm just going to do very quick transactions with minimum information. So I'll go straight down here and say I'm receiving this writing pad of 50 pages, and I put a quantity of 20, and then I receive the other writing pad. I put a quantity of 15, then we put sunlight liquid 750 mils, and we put 10 of them. So we are going to leave out the fourth product so that we have got one item which has got a zero balance. So once you are done with that, you confirm the transaction, and then it says, do you want to confirm or to cancel? So I confirm and print the slip. So this transaction helps you to print the actual slip for any type of transaction, whether it is a purchase, it is a transfer, etc. So it indicates the items that have been received, and I close. So the moment you have posted a transaction, immediately if you go into your reports, say your stock inquiry reports, let's look at the main store and print the item balances at the main store. You'll see that the balances are now 20, 15, and 10, and then 0 for the item that we did not order. So the on order account is now in minus 20 because I did not bother going through the purchase order processing if I'd done purchase order processing, the on order account would have been 20 when we ordered. Then when we receive, it reduces down to 0. But now it was at 0. Now when we receive, it's now in minus 20. So if I continue receiving without placing the purchase order, it's accumulating the totals that I've been ordering and receiving, and at the end of the day you'll be able to see from here what was the total number of items that were ordered, although the number will be in the negative. So you can see that at the main store there is a balance of 20, 15 and 10. But if we go to the other stores, right, let me probably increase the zoom here just in case you can't see it properly. Right, for these different items, they balance on hand. Now let us check the balance for the same items at substore A and substore B. So we print item balances at the selected store. You'll see that there is still 0 balance at substore A for all the items because we only received at the main store. So same thing with substore B. There's nothing yet because we only received at the main store. Let us now do an internal movement of the stock. So I go back to my transactions. This time I'm going to do a transfer. So I select transfer on the transaction type. So on the transfer, the issued by gives my name automatically. Then I can now enter the store that is receiving. From main store to, I now put substore A. So I put substore A as the receiving account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer 5 of this writing pad, and then I transfer 8 of the 100 page, and the sunlight liquid I give them only 3. So we confirm the transaction. So it's 5, 8 and 3 going to substore A. I confirm the transaction, and my receipt shows details of the transaction, a transfer to substore A from the main store. So it gives the items and the quantities. So you can print and have this document signed. Now let us go back to the reports menu, and then we look at stock inquiry and reports. At the main store, we print the item balances at that store. So now you can see that the balance has now reduced. We now only have 15 because we issued 5, and then we issued 8. From 15 we remain with 7. The other one we issued 3 from 10, and we remained with 7. So these items that we issued have gone somewhere, because remember we said it is a double entry transaction. Whatever comes from one store must go to the other store. So we now go to substore A to check the balances at substore A. It is now showing us that we have 5 of the 50-page writing pad, 8 of the 100-page, and 3 of the sunlight liquid. So the transfer has moved these items from the main store to substore A. So we can close, and we want to go and transfer to substore B. So I go back, put a transaction, and then I make it a transfer again, and this time I send it to substore B. So for now I'm simply entering simple information. So we take the same items, but this time the writing pad I'm issuing 6, and then the 100-page I'm issuing 7, and then the sunlight liquid I'm issuing 5 to substore B. So 6, 7, and 5. So we confirm and confirm. So our transaction shows the quantities. Then we close our sales menu and go to reports menu, and then under stock inquiry and reports we select main store. It's already selected, and we print item balances at the selected store. So now the balance for our items is now even lower. So we now have only 9 of the 50-page. We now have 0 of the 100-page because we have transferred all of them. At first we transferred 8, then we transferred 7. Now we have 0. And we now have only 2 because first we transferred 3 items at first, and then it became 7, and then we transferred 5 items. Now the balance is 2. So we can go and check the destination, which is substore B, to see what has happened at substore B. And substore B now shows us the balances that we transferred there: 6, 7, and 5. So the other sunlight liquid is at 0 because we did not order any of it. So you can see that because we only did a transfer, the totals are still the same quantities that we ordered, but now they are just scattered across the various sub-stores. We only did an internal transfer which keeps all the stock within the company. So lastly, for now, I would like us to look at the transaction history for a single item. So we take item P001, and then we go to the main store and we look at the history of this item at the main store. So remember, transaction history is for an item at a particular store. So we click on print transaction history. Now it shows us that there are 3 transactions. The first one was a receipt. We started with 0 and the quantity was 20 that we received, and then the balance became 20. Then the next one was a transfer to substore A. We started with the 20 balance, we transferred 5 and we remained with 15. Then the last transaction was another transfer to substore B. We started with 15, transferred 6, and the balance was 9. So what we would like to do is to now go and look at the same transaction but from the point of view of substore A. So as far as substore A, this is the only transaction for this item because it only received on transfer from the main store. It had a balance of 0, it received 5, and it ended up with 5. So you can see that this one transaction is causing the balance at the 2 different stores to be updated. So each store is keeping its own records as if it was the only store on the system. So that is how a double entry transaction works. It updates both the issuing store as well as the receiving store. Let's now look at an example of a stock movement analysis report. So we got where it says stock movement analysis reports, and then we are going to report for the main store. The period is just giving us 1 year from 1st of December last year until 30th of November 2020, because that's my date today. So if I go to movement summary for the selected store, so I click on movement summary for the selected store and it produces for me the stock movement summary. And you can see for each item that has got a balance, there is a writing pad with 50 pages. The purchase receipts was 20, 15 and 10, and then transfer receipts. This means if we had received from another store on transfer, the receipts would be here. So we will be able to see these transfer receipts when we do the same analysis for the sub store, because they don't have purchase receipts but they've got transfer receipts. So the total received will now be the purchase receipts plus the transfer receipts. Then we come to the outgoing, local issues, transfers, as well as items that were scrapped. So we transferred out a total of 11 for the pad 50 page. Then we transferred out a total of 15 for the 100 page writing pad, and then we transferred out a total of 8 bottles of the sunlight liquid. Then the total outflow, right? It now gives you the total outflow, which is 11, 15 and 8. Then the net movement. Net movement now takes the total receipts minus the total outflow. So in other words, the net movement was a positive gain of 9 items. So from the time that we started this period, we had 0, but by the time we ended, we had 9. So that is the net movement, which is the sum of what was received minus what was issued. So this is from the main store point of view. Let us look at a sub store, say sub store A, and we check its movement analysis. So as we said, the sub store does not have purchases. We only received on transfer, and that will also be the total receipts. And we have not yet made any issues at the branch substore A. So our net movement is just the same as the transfers. So if we wanted to now record a transaction at substore A, we have to tell the system that we are now working at substore A. So I close my menus to go to the main, then I change the store where I'm working. So I say log on to a different store. So I change to substore A and I confirm. So this time when I now go into the sales menu, I am now transacting from substore A. So I can say it's a sales or it's an issue. So I'll leave it as a sales, and then I jump straight to the items. I'm going to issue 2 of each item, or rather let me make it 2, 3, 4 so that you can notice the difference. No, this one I'll make it 1 because I don't think we've got 4 items on the sunlight liquid. So I confirm the transaction. So I'm now transacting from substore A. I confirm it. So it looks like I am very much in a hurry. Okay, this one I recorded it as a sales transaction, so I must put all the information required for a sales transaction, which is the amount of cash received from the customer. So now I can close. So I was saying it looks like I'm going fast, but it's because you are able to pause the video and you can actually stop at a particular screen if you think I went past it too fast. So let's go to our reports. So now that we have done transactions at substore A, we can look at, say, the transaction history for a particular item P001 at substore A. Last time it had only 1 transaction, so now we have 2 transactions at substore A. The first one was a receipt on transfer. We started with 0, received 5, and we had a new balance of 5. And now we have sold 2 items, and now we have got a balance of 3. And you can also see the overall store balance at substore A, which shows you the new balances after we have issued out the stock. So whatever movement you record, the system is keeping track of these balances at the different sub stores. So I hope you'll be able to enter a few transactions like I've done, and also to see a few of these reports. You can see how easily the reports come out just after we put in the transaction. That is what we called the multidimensional data model, which allows you to put data right at the bottom, and then automatically the system does the calculations, the aggregate, and it gives you the reports at all the different levels. So all the best with your exercises, and as I said, if you are facing any issues, just let me know either on email or you can call me. So I'll see you in the next module.